On today's show, we're going to dive into some of the major college basketball matchups, including UCLA at South Carolina, M's in-person scouting thoughts from last week's Phil Knight Legacy Tournament, and plenty more. Locked Women's Basketball starts now.
Ogunbowale for the win. Good!
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Welcome. You're Locked On Women's Basketball. My name's Hunter Cruse, and I'm the Saturday host covering the WNBA Draft and college basketball at large. Thanks for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On Women's Basketball is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline had you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I'm joined by my co-hosts M. Adler and Joshua Welch. M is a beat writer for the Seattle Storm, in addition to their plethora of work at The Next. Josh was the women's basketball content creator and can be found at ENFP_hoops on Twitter. So I know we wanted to start with Diamond Miller, huge game winner over Notre Dame. Even had Kevin Durant tweeting about it. Very, very fun show in there. I know you want to talk about it, Josh. I know you want to talk about the difference between how I think she started to climb more in number 2 discussions was where it was heading into the season. I think it was more clear at number 2, and you had Diamond number 2 all along. So
yeah, again, let me just say from the beginning, I said she was 2, and because just that sophomore film just was incredible to me. Like there's just not a lot of players that can just move like she does in the paint, and then just how she's able to contribute in every aspect. Like specifically her last 3 games, like she's really cut down on the turnovers, which was plaguing her a little at the beginning of the season, and she's just turning into a more complete player, where I'm even hearing some people talk about number 1 with Indiana, like we talked about with Mark. I've seen it. I've seen it. I am not there yet. I just, despite the Fever's front court depth, I just don't see why you would pass on Aliyah Boston. But I am starting to get concerned for my Atlanta Dream not being able to pick her up now, because Diamond's killing it. That buzzer beater was so fun. Everyone knew that she was going to be the one taking the shot, and just knocked it down. 31 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. Just, again, a player that just makes an impact in so many different ways. And just, yeah, what a fun ending to that game. What were some things both of you saw that really intrigued her about that game against Notre Dame?
Look, I agree. As far as the sophomore tape, I think the highlights that she showed off that year were, obviously as good as really anyone in the class. But for me, it's the consistency that she's brought this year. I mean, props to you for expecting that to come along, and it really has, in terms of the footwork that I've talked about in multiple episodes, in terms of the ability to finish consistently, especially with that left hand, the defensive effort in rotation that I don't think had been there before. It's now all coming together in a way that is, she's someone who was consistently scoring 20, 25, 30 at this point, which is something that, even looking at her sophomore tape, that wasn't a thing she was doing at that point, and that wasn't a thing that she was able to do, I think, at that point in time. And the consistency she's added to her game to be able to do that, and to be able to hit the marks that we have seen flashes of that made us so excited by her, but do it night in and night out for a team that desperately needs someone to step up in that role. They don't have anyone else that can do it if she's having a night off. Seeing that as it's a special kind of thing to be able to take over in that role. You talked about, everyone knew she was getting the last shot in that game, but it wasn't just that. Everyone knew she was getting the shot at every shot at the end of that game. She had 13 points in the fourth quarter. It was, I want to say, 4 of 6 shooting or 5 of 7 shooting from the field. Just an unbelievable night from her, downing what was pretty easily a top 5, 6, 7 team, and one that has depth and good defenders all across its lineup. Signature performance.
Yeah, because they were trying to make so many plays, because she was creating her shot from the perimeter and everything, and they were trying to make play help in the lanes on the nail, and every time it made no difference. Her handle is so tight whenever she's driving to the rim. I mean, I have her shot chart pulled up from yesterday, and she took 3 threes. I think a couple of them were like a couple step backs. Both above the break. 0 for 3 from 3. 0 for 1 in the mid range, and then in the paint was 11 for 17. So it's like to get 17 shots at the rim. That's like absurd rim pressure ability, and it's not like those. It's not like she's playing a dunker spot and she's getting drop off passes to the rim. She's creating those herself. She's getting downhill. She's utilizing her handle. Her burst is like unreal. I think a lot of fun things with her. And like, did you guys see anything else on the Notre Dame side in that game? Olivia Miles.
Really quick, one more thing on Diamond Miller. Just speaking of her, just like creating opportunities in the paint. That's something else that was not on her sophomore film, and her just getting to the line. Like I just pulled it up now. Her free throw attempts her sophomore season were 4.7 per game. So far this season, 7.3 per game, which is incredible. And she's had a couple games where she's gone double digits. So, defenses don't know what to do with her, and they're just putting her at the line. They're like, let her pretty much be an automatic scorer or make her have to earn it at the free throw line. And yeah, it's just been so much fun. But yeah, obviously.
She's currently in the 90th percentile among forwards in free throw rate.
Amazing.
Or free throw attempt rate, I should say. Yeah, I mean, Hunter, just to your point on the Notre Dame side, I mean, as always, Olivia Miles is great.
Yep.
The shot, I think, is coming along, and the on-ball flashes are there. The defensive potential is there. Again, I think, I said, how good that game against Northwestern was, despite the abridged minutes. And I think, she just continues to show flashes and is just an incredibly exciting player. I think everyone on that team is really rounding out to form. They obviously, had an off night from Darren Mabry, let's say, and that's going to cost you because that so much their offense runs through being able to do that. They had off nights from their bigs, really, just in terms of how they weren't able to handle the boards as well as usual. Lauren Ebo did not come in and provide the usual presence against the opponent's bench that she's able to, just with her size. It was surprising to see that, frankly, against a team that really just doesn't have any centers. Like Maryland plays like a 5'10". Lavender Briggs as kind of like a bench small 4. It's very strange that Notre Dame struggled so much inside. But on the more positive notes, I mean, Sonia Citron is like the leap she appears to have made this year as to be able to like finish her scoring. Last year, I think she was like 31% from 3. This year, we saw a game in which she started off 5 from 3. She goes 4 or 5 from 3 in this game. She's just hitting shots. She's filling gaps well. She's able to finish. And defensively, the length and the consistency on ball is there, even if, sometimes you're guarding someone who's just going to hit every shot over you because they're Diamond Miller. Did you see anything?
Like you said with Olivia Miles, again and again, not just the simple passes. She can make some extremely impressive reads and ball screens. I mean, I think people said like she could be eligible next year, which is like another thing that we'll see at some point and see how that turns out. Because I mean, for me, I want to see the best talent in the league as soon as possible. So if she's, so.
Well, I need team expansion and I need roster expansion. Just need to throw that out anytime these things are.
But yeah, to the point about her, being eligible, we talked, just as a note for listeners, we in the WNBA and the draft in college community, we talk a lot about players who can be eligible to leave after their junior year, and that's one thing. It's something that's really rare. It's really overstated in terms of like how much we talk about versus how much it happens. The thing with Olivia Miles, and this is also the thing with someone we'll mention later in the show, Oregon State's point guard, Talia von Olhoffen. Olivia Miles matriculated to Notre Dame a semester early. She came in a spring of what would have been her senior year of high school. So it's not that she can like leave early, it's that she will be eligible because she will have finished 7 semesters of college at the end of next season, which realistically, you would think that she might have gotten her bachelor's in those 7 semesters. She might do a normal 4 years of college of college ball and get a 1-year master's. She might get the bachelor's after 7 semesters and call it a day there. It's going to be really interesting to see how that develops for her.
And the one play in particular from her, the inbounds play late in the 4th quarter where she just threw it seemed like on a rope, where it just gave, I forgot who nailed the shot, but it was just late in the game where Notre Dame briefly took the lead, I believe, when she just made it. Yeah, she's just incredible. Just every game, she just does something that just astounds me with her passing ability. And like you said, more of her game is coming together. Like it's really scary for college hoops and, of course, the WNBA whenever she arrives. So, yeah.
So coming up shortly, we'll get into our reactions from UCLA at South Carolina, which featured 2 projected top 5 picks in this year's class. BetOnline.net is your number 1 source for football betting this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, in-depth articles, and analysis on every game you can find. The fastest and easiest way to check on all of your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to BetOnline.net or use a mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the biggest games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and analysis only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. So let's get into South Carolina against UCLA. Extremely heavy matchup between we have a lot of different prospects. Not even just for this year, there's a lot of 5-star recruits that we'll continue to be talking for the years down the line. So in this game, I think we saw UCLA get out to a really good start, which is like kind of gave a little bit of shock to South Carolina, but they ended up pulling out late. And what did you guys see from just as a holistic view? What were your takeaways from this game as a whole? I'll say to you first.
I had some mixed thoughts. There were some players I really loved in this game, and there were some players not so much. Boston, I thought, had her moments where she was, clearly just Aaliyah Boston. She also had some moments where she let a freshman get by her and hit a reverse layup when you thought she should have had the wingspan to contest it. There were some moments when she wasn't able to finish for an and one when you thought maybe that was something that, like Cameron Brink would be able to do. And those were a little surprising. But I mean, overall, just as usual, pretty strong game for her, despite the fact that her matchup, Emily Bessoir from UCLA, is a real good defensive center. I thought overall there were a lot of strong performances on the UCLA side. Charisma Osborne, I think, continues to be someone who's excellent in the spot she picks. I think it's fair to be concerned about, how much she has to pick her spots, but when she is going for it, she's going to go for it. Her ability to work in the post right now. She posted up Bree Beal several times in the game, and she's giving up, I think, 3 inches in that matchup and certainly like 40 pounds, which on the flip side, I think I'm just out on Bree Beal at this point. Like, I don't know what she's going to do for you. I don't even know if she's actually a positive for South Carolina at this point.
I also liked some of what I saw from Kiki Rice in this game.
Oh, God, yes.
Mm-hmm. The story will be how she ended the game, but over the course of the game, I mean, her downhill driving, like.
Can I just point out, the story will be about how she ended this game, but to be clear, if you watch the game and you watch the replay, she was right to be pissed. That was a clean steal, and it was an incredible steal.
For sure. But like,
I'm not going to get into the refs. Not going to get into it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good.
But I think she ranks in like the 70th percentile in terms of rim finishing this year, which is like, I mean, she's a freshman. She's 18 years old.
She had 3 reverse layups in this game.
I know.
With 6'8" wingspan.
So athletic.
Yeah, one of them was against Boston, right?
Oh yeah. That was her first bucket. It was crazy. And she had this hezzy dribble. It was a pick and roll. It was a high pick and roll going towards the sideline. She cuts it towards the baseline. She hits Aaliyah Boston at just past the elbow with this hezzy dribble. It forces Boston to take an extra step, and Rice just gets by her and hits the reverse. Crazy stuff.
So we want to talk about Zia Cook in this game. I mean, the shooting efficiency was.
I'm out.
You're
man.
out. Yeah.
I mean, look, like, she has such an open bucket from the corner, so many times a game from 3. I just, like, if you're not going to be able to hit a corner 3 wide open on like as many times as she gets that look, I don't understand what you're going to be doing. Like, the shot making in theory is what it is, but it's like that sophomore year just seems farther and farther away.
From the eye test, she's better on contested shots than open shots. At least
to be in rhythm. It forces her to be in rhythm.
Maybe not at the rim, but like in terms of mid-range shooting, 3-point shooting. Yes. I mean, like, she got so many extra pass above the break threes, or like from the wing, and she just couldn't capitalize on these looks, which was like, I mean, it's frustrating because like she started the year off so hot. I mean, we still had our questions about her. I mean, we're always like, okay, let's see how sustainable this is, especially how they have a lot of big matchups over their non-conference play, and it's like, I mean, I want to be a big fan of her game, and like, it's yeah. What do you think?
Someone's
Joshua?
going to take a shot on her just with the flashes of potential.
Yeah,
that
someone's
she's
gonna take
shown.
her. Yeah, someone's gonna take her.
I
would
just
take her in
don't
the third-
know.
I mean, I would definitely take her in the third round if like she was available and like no one that I was
Maybe
particularly
late second
interested in,
round,
just
yeah.
to-
But
just to see what
really
happens if you
quick,
get her in camp and get her in rhythm. But yeah,
just have to go back to Charisma Osborne. Like, I made the mistake with the Mystics on not picking Haley Jones, but with the Dream, I really like Charisma Osborne's game. Like,
you cannot move enough players over Haley Jones at this point.
Jeez.
The other one was on accident. So she's
gonna end up going like, is she? Just clear this up. Is she in your top 4?
Yes.
Haley Jones.
Osborne?
Yes,
Okay.
Oh,
absolutely.
Haley Jones.
Because not in the mock draft. Not in the mock draft. She was not.
Yeah, no. Oh, I know, but Tebow took over
All
my
right, he's
brain.
apologized enough for that at this point.
But yeah, my favorite game of Osborne's is something that was just warranted, like the full court pass that she did that ended up being blocked. All we're seeing on the replay is the shot being blocked at the end, but she like got the ball and just released it so quick. And it was just right where the shooter needed to like just be in step. Yeah, I love the flashes she's shown in her passing game, along with the jump shot that's been more consistent when she hasn't had as much on her plate as she did last season. So just really excited for her game, and just the UCLA team in general. Just again, like Hunter mentioned, just the high caliber players they have on that team that are going to be here for at least a couple years. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And her defense might be, I think, a little bit less impactful, I'll say, than maybe what I thought after last year, after the games at least that I watched of theirs. But I mean, it's still like early going in the season. She's still, having come off the amount of injuries she had last year. She's still doing pretty well navigating through all the screens that South Carolina had for her. She was still recovering well. There were some shots towards the end where she was on Kira Fletcher or Zaya Cook, and she, has to go under an Aaliyah Boston screen and beat her back at the elbow and stick with her and contest a shot at the rim here from them. I mean, she's just doing well. Her athleticism translates. She's not losing people off the dribble. She is able to provide, a decent amount of help for her teammates off the ball in defense. I think at this point you're looking at someone who's just very well rounded. I don't know how much necessarily like upside there is, unless you think you can for some reason unlock something at the rim from her or something in terms of like getting over ball screens. But at this point, I am in love with the comp I made a few weeks ago. She, to me, is a supercharged Nia Cloud. It's like if you took Nia Cloud and then made everything better.
And Ashley Watkins, freshman for South Carolina, she had a pretty big block on Charisma in this game. I mean, it was kind of like helping over because that wasn't her initial matchup on that possession. Pretty big block, kind of like what I saw from her as well. I mean, that's just kind of what South Carolina does, just these long athletic forwards. I mean, Leisha and me here. I mean, I'm the biggest fan on this podcast right here. I had a little bit of a query. So she's one of 3 Power 6 players in the country this season.
Did you just say Power 6?
What?
Fine. Yeah. The Big East is a lot better this year than it was last year.
And they've done so good in non-conference play, but this is a WNBA podcast.
They're a lot better this year than they were last year. I don't have a leg to stand on anymore.
And I am excited for this. I saw this, and it features a player that I mentioned preseason. You're like, who the heck is this? Go ahead, Hunter.
I know who
I'd like to hear you.
So she's one of 3 players with a 2% steal rate, 6% block rate, and 70% from the free throw line, like minimum 15 minutes per game, which is like, okay, you're in the rotation. And that joins Stephanie Suarez for Iowa State. It also joins Diamond Miller at Maryland. We already talked about her earlier. And then Tiana Jackson at Kansas.
Thank you.
I'm genuinely surprised Cameron Brake didn't make that list.
And for listeners who have listened since the beginning, this is a player that I brought up before the season, who I saw their film. I threw them in the last spot of my draft board, but I just another player that I just like their athleticism and something could potentially be there. And I'm glad she's showing more offensive spurts. I thought the defense was already there, and now she's adding offense to her game. And yeah, I think she's someone that I am going to have to get Em and Hunter to watch a full game of coming up. So I'm excited.
I tried.
Pushing to.
I tried.
Wasn't that before
First of
the
all,
season?
Kansas, but also like, look, okay, whatever. That's not the point right now. First of all, I looked it up. Cameron Brink misses that list because her steal rate is exactly 0.1% too low.
She didn't make it.
She was just on the brink of making it. Oh, so close, Sam.
I'm so done with this.
She has to deal with these stat jokes all the time. So yeah.
God. Like it'd be one thing if we only did them like once every so often. It's every time. Anyway, Ashlyn Watkins. For me, the thing with her, and in contrast to, I don't want to make her in contrast to Victoria Saxton, because Saxton is good at power forward and she does good things defensively. It's not like high level stuff, but it's quite good. But sort of like a level above Saxton, or in contrast to what I often see from me here in terms of being out of place, but having to make up for it with her wingspan. Watkins, like her footwork, her placement, her ability to stick with people and just stay on assignment, even though she's like, approaching her 50th minute in college ball and against these top teams has been really impressive to me. Like the shot you're talking about against Osborne. So Osborne's guarded by Bree Beal. They run like a pick and roll from the mid-range empty side, close to the elbow. Osborne goes toward the sideline, comes back. Bree Beal gets caught in the rescreen and can't recover to Osborne. So Beal effectively forces Watkins to switch onto Osborne. Osborne hits Watkins with a pump fake. Watkins goes airborne, and Osborne tries to just pull the ball back and then shoot again. But Watkins doesn't jump far enough. She lands on her feet and then bounds right back into Osborne. She's just so springy and coordinated. She just stuck with her the whole time. She's a player to watch for sure.
I'm really quick going back to a here. Oh, sorry. Oh, I was just curious. Are you the same as me? I'm like, I can't commit to her being a first round pick. Like, just so many, like, she has like a couple flashes every game of like, wow, this player is incredibly athletic and can be an impact player, but I just don't think it's fully there yet where I'm strongly contemplating making her a first round pick yet. Are you in the same area, or where are you at? Yeah, for me, it's everything that I see flashes of from her. Within the same game, I will see 2 or 3 times she'll do the same thing but get it wrong. And it's not necessarily just the inconsistency, but it's just like the difference between the rawness and where she has to get to be an impact player with her non-shooting. The passing is fine. Her passing ability is good, obviously, but her running point is kind of a joke. Like, she doesn't actually play make. With her offensive profile, like, and her extreme inconsistency in actually finishing, there's the things that she makes flashes of. The difference between where she is and where she has to get to be an impact player at this skill set is a wide gulf for me, and I'm not sure about how difficult it is to get there.
Yeah, like with her jumper in this game, she had one. It was like right corner 3. I mean, it's like a slingshot jumper, and it was air ball, no rim.
She shot.
She shot over the entire rim. Like I like her game. Like, I think her defensive event creation is like absurd. I mean, like, she had a couple plays in this game where I think she jumped the passing lane on Kiki Rice. I mean, there was another moment where I think like she was at the nail, quick steal, like just quick lunges right in there, and she can force turnovers. But also, like you said, her off-ball defense, she can kind of get lost sometimes, and it's kind of an odd situation where she's a senior, but she makes mistakes like a freshman would make, which is like I mean, like, I'm still in on her game. I think she's still probably a first-round prospect for me personally, but I see
definitely someone takes her.
Yeah, she has flaws. She has flaws in her game, and we'll just see how it goes as it progresses this season, because the production, defensively, statistically wise, has been awesome. Like I said with that query earlier, but it's just about adding to her offensive game. But we'll see. So after the break, we'll wrap up with M's in-person scouting thoughts from last week's Phil Knight Legacy Tournament that featured the likes of UConn, Iowa, Duke, and then also Oregon State, which we'll get into that later. So, okay. So I'll give it to you, M. You were in person for this game, this tournament as a whole, this whole weekend. What did you think overall from the tournament? different matchups prospects? What were your key takeaways?
I mean, like I thought Zach Edey was obviously dominant under the rim defensively. I think his positioning gets more credit than his actual ability. I thought Brandon Miller was.
Brandon Miller.
Wait. Oh, right. Women's basketball. Sorry, I was out there covering both. Very confusing. A lot of games.
We can talk Brandon Miller. Like I can talk Brandon Miller any day.
I won't have anything to say. I only watch women's hoops. I would have nothing to say, so I just make up stuff. So
imagine if Brandon Miller is basically. Imagine if you gave like Caitlin Clark's jumper to Cameron Brink. At least offensively. Anyway,
you're just trying to build Cameron Brink in a lab, like expand her game in a lab.
Exactly.
Which, really quick, do you think there's any chance, because she's draft eligible, going back to the players that are draft eligible, what would it take for her, like how dominant of a season would it take for her to potentially leave early?
I don't know. That's up to her.
National champ,
it's up to her. People just don't do that often. But yeah, I mean, as far as the PK85, there was a lot that, first of all, there was just so much basketball. Credit to them. They put on an amazing tournament for everyone, for the fans, the tickets that were able to just get into so many events, and the amount of stuff they had handing out and the experience there for the media in terms of the access, in terms of the food, in terms of everything, and how easy they made it for all of us, and for the players, the opportunity. Incredible all around. As far as the play, I mean, first of all, Azzi Fudd is incredible. Azzi Fudd can do a whole bunch of stuff. We've talked about it on the show before. I'm not going to beat that horse to death already, but I mean, in person, it pops just the same as it does in film. Sticking with them, Aaliyah Edwards is making some jumps this year, and it stands out. I think we see them in person. The way that she's moving within that offense and the way that she's hitting jumpers right now it's something. And they had to play her at center against Kennedy Brown, who's 6'6" from Duke. I had to play her against Monica Sonano, literally the most efficient player in college over the past 2 or 3 years, against Iowa, and she held her to, I think, 7 points. It was 2 of 6 shooting or something. It was crazy. Aaliyah Edwards is making some leaps right now, just in terms of being able to, be worth something on offense and holding up defensively in ways that she has not in the past. This is serious. I think the whole starting lineup that UConn threw out over this past weekend is something to look out for in future drafts. And that's including Nika Mule, if she can develop something on offense. Lou Lopez Seneschal is going to be worth something. Looking at Aubrey Griffin next year, or actually this year, I think. Again, these are players to look out for. Did you guys watch UNC Iowa State?
Of course I did. I'm a UNC fan for people that
I know
don't
you're a UNC fan, so you're going to tell so tell me what you thought of. So obviously Deja Kelly had a little bit of an inefficient day, but I want to know what you thought of that, and also Stephanie Suarez.
Yeah, Suarez, especially in the first half, I didn't know if she was going to be stopped. And it's someone I obviously did not watch film on over the offseason, because there's no, I wouldn't have thought to look at film of NAIA. Is that where she is? I don't know. But anyway.
I didn't get NAIA for the Masters.
I didn't know who she was before the season.
Nope.
I had no clue.
But she was impressive. No, and she has the size inside to make it an impact. It's just what we were talking about in our group chat, just how much time is she going to have to develop before the draft to make her a more intriguing prospect than other front court players. But would someone take a risk on her with what she's shown already in flashes this season? Absolutely. Both of you know that I'm a huge fan of Kennedy Todd Williams as well. Thought she had an incredible game and is just another player that just makes an aspect and so difference in so many aspects of the game. And she's added a consistent 3-point shot. So yeah, that's another player I was really excited for. Deja Kelly, especially. Yeah, just they flat out put on a show in that Iowa State game in the second half. That was incredible. Just both of them feeding off of each other, Deja Kelly and Kennedy Todd Williams. So
I'll say, as far as Suarez this year, just as far as draft picks this year, as far as Iowa State, I think Ashley Jones, what she was doing to Alyssa Usby in this game makes me maybe a little more bullish on the ability of her, interior game to translate to the W. Interior game just being she has basically 1.5 post moves, but if that's able to work, then I think it unlocks her to be used as a shooter without teams necessarily just selling it on top, locking her the whole way, which is intriguing as far as Ashley Jones is relatively low draft stock at the moment. As far as Suarez, being able to be 6'6" and also shoot the three while being good at the rim as she is really intriguing. And she's not she's not purely a foul machine, I think, on defense right now, even though she's not great, but she has the size and she at least uses it somewhat. But we talked about this with a friend of the show, Peter Kilkelly, on Twitter a little bit, which is one thing that has stood out to me in the game, just watching it live, is the fact that she's 6'6", but she finishes like she's 6'2" or 6'3". There's a thing that you talk about in men's basketball a lot, and not so much in women's basketball, which is the term called playing above the hoop, which is to say that someone is quite literally able to put the ball above the hoop when they dunk, when they finish, yada, yada, yada. Because the higher you put the ball, the harder it is for opponents to block it or get in the way. What you see with a lot of centers is when you're laying up the ball, they keep their hand on the ball as long as possible to keep that ball as high as possible, so it's hard to block. It's just hard to contest. And Suarez is finishing really low. Her hand leaves the ball pretty low off the ground, and I don't know how fixable that is. If it is fixable, I'd be a lot more bullish on her.
Makes sense.
So I want to go back to UConn and Nika Mule. She has the funkiest advanced stat profile I've ever seen. 9.6% usage, which is in the bottom 3 percentile. And her assist rate she has a 40% assist rate, which is 100th percentile in the country.
She leads the country in assists. Yes.
Yes. It's absurd. Like, I mean, her offensive game, obviously it's passing. Like, I mean, she averages 1.7 field goals made per game. So it's low, but
Teams respect her as if she's going to hit some mid-range shots on them when she has yet to prove to me that that's a thing.
She is the most
fast.
clear,
she's a really good playmaker.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
If you are not a scorer, the playmaking can't really translate.
It's like running a pick and roll, and then I remember Mark Schindler. He had Kevin Pelton on, and they were saying how with old point guards, they were saying they'd run pick and roll, but the primary decision out of pick and roll was to pass. Where now we're seeing more proactive decision makers out of pick and roll. And Nika Mule is kind of more that old traditional point guard where she's just a flashy passer. But I mean, she's interesting.
She's a sensational point of attack defender, though, and so
3% assist rate, I think.
Yeah, you can just get something
or steal rate
to go on. If you can just add something to go on offense to be just remotely respected as a shooter, then you're looking at a true impactful two-way point guard.
No, and I looked at her hoop stats because, again, her passing rate is just off the charts. The last player to finish with double-digit assists for an entire season was Courtney Vandersloot with Gonzaga. So
that's a good player.
Stuff. Yeah, she's pretty good.
Pretty good,
yeah. But I just wanted to ask you one quick question, Em. Who's a player that stuck out that didn't pop out on film as much, just a player that you noticed just seeing in person, what that you were able to notice something differently than watching on film?
There were a couple examples, I think. Obviously being at Duke, covering Duke, I watch pretty much every one of their games, most of them in person. Celeste Taylor is someone who has, over the years been mixed, and I think that comes out in their stats. We've talked about her jumper, or I've at least written about her jumper sort of being a key to improving here. And Duke's roster construction, the plays it runs, make it a little prescribed as to whether or not she can take the volume to show improvement there. But against UConn, I at least wanted to see a little more oomph from her when other Blue Devils weren't getting it done. That's not necessarily lowering my stock on her, but that was something that I at least wanted to see. Although again, the structure of their offense makes it a little hard for someone to do that. On the other hand, Emily Ryan and Lexi Janarski, the backcourt duo for Iowa State, I wasn't hugely high on them coming into the weekend, but I mean, they kind of got owned over the weekend, to be honest. So their shots didn't really pop in the way that they might on film, just when you're looking at a game in which they are shooting well. UNC is really good at contesting on the perimeter, and it just kind of silenced them. Lexi Janarski looked, I don't know how it happened at the time, and I still don't understand how on earth she won Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year last year in a universe where Alyssa Smith was in the same conference, especially. And I don't see much from either of them. Even with Emily Ryan's assist numbers, I don't see that much playmaking happening here. I don't see high-popping passing ability by itself. Fun
What about
college
a
players, I guess.
positive? What about someone positive? You know, is there something that you were like, whoa, this player, this popped off the screen for them and I didn't see it? Let's end on a positive note.
Let's go back to the team everyone knows is my favorite team in the universe, UConn. Lou Lopez Seneschal and Aubrey Griffin, I think, were popping on offense in a way that I don't think I'd necessarily seen them on tape. You know, lose, I think it was the fourth quarter against Texas to open the season was ridiculous. And what it was, I think she was like 1 of 8 coming into the quarter in that game and then hit like 6 shots, a bunch of threes. Aubrey Griffin's been super duper efficient this year and just like, it's really smooth to watch in person. Those are both games that are draft eligible this year. Lou's a grad student, I think. And those are both players that I'm definitely keeping an eye on.
Awesome.
So thanks for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available in the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.